Near the end of last night's Raw, the WWE sent out a statement detailing a developmental talent who was last at the Performance Center on June 9th who had been confirmed as ill with COVID-19. This was not discovered after a test by the WWE, but by an independent test undertaken by the talent in question. The WWE had at that time conducted 0 tests for COVID-19 despite operating as business as usual. Talent were not aware of anyone being confirmed positive until the press release was sent out to the media. As in, we were made aware, and I was made aware, before the actual wrestling talent in the WWE. Since then, the WWE shut down tapings for today so they can spread out testing and test every member of their employment base. However, I find it particularly curious that the WWE allowed real fans into the Performance Center for last night's Raw, as well as a segment in which the Street Profits went through the crowd high-fiving people. Trust me when I say I'm going to be asking a lot of questions in the near future. A lot of other things happened on Raw, including the returns of Christian and The Big Show, so if you'd just like to hit like, we will get started with the review. Randy Orton opens the show. There's a definite positive to real life fans as long as Randy Orton is around because they boo the hell out of him. He cuts a very intense promo, really doing some of the best work of his career I feel right now, stating that the Legend Killer has returned. And given that we're supposed to be getting a lot more legends appearing, now would be a great time for that gimmick. Speaking of WWE legends, Christian is the one who comes out to represent Edge's interests. Challenging a Legend Killer when you're not cleared to wrestle is a bad move, and that is how it works out. Orton challenges Christian to come out of retirement and compete in an unsanctioned match in the main event of WWE Raw. This is a ratings grab if ever I've seen one because Christian is still confirmed not cleared to wrestle. Orton gives Christian until the end of the night to say whether he will be wrestling or not. We are shown several segments throughout the night, including Christian struggling with the decision and finally getting some help from a friendly giant to make it for him. Our first match of the night is a rematch with Angel Garza and Kevin Owens, two men who have performed particularly well and could probably, if given longer, make some more magic. This match in the end is all storyline, with Andrade being a key part of it, coming down early on in the match and resulting in Zelina Vega marching off in fury. Eventually Andrade does try and trip Kevin Owens and provide the distraction. Angel Garza does attack from behind, but it distracts himself, allowing Kevin Owens to hit the Stone Cold Stunner and win the match. Afterwards, Team Vega goes off in a bit of a huff with its tail between its legs. There is more to come. The Civil War be a brewing, and I'm quite excited for this one because I feel this will be when Angel Garza starts to really push into face territory. There is a recap of Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre from WWE Backlash the night before. They do really show how dominant Lashley was, and this is of course before Lashley and MVP make their entrance. They have a backstage promo just before this where Lashley starts talking a lot more than he usually does, which is clearly a conscious decision and one that I feel I can get behind. Lana would interrupt this segment because she's essentially the subject of this segment. She would have an argument with MVP, which results in MVP calling her a thought. Okay. Bobby Lashley would eventually speak up, having heard too much, stating that Lana hasn't even been in a ring recently and he was using her, wrong way around, she was using him to become more famous. Lana has a response ready, stating that if she wanted to get famous, she definitely would have slept with someone a bit bigger, for example Drew McIntyre. To be clear, I mean bigger as in more famous. That line unfortunately doesn't get to get the reaction from the crowd that I feel it would have gotten because Bobby Lashley interrupts immediately, demanding a divorce. Lashley and MVP then walk out with MVP's smug face being the last thing we see. After it became clear that Rusev was not going to sign on again to the WWE, I did begin to mention on the Sportskeeda podcast that all signs were, and everything I was being told, was that Lana and Lashley would be breaking up as soon as storyline possible. Simply put, Lana did sign a new contract whereas Rusev did not, and the entire storyline was built to be a device to get Rusev over. They did not want Lana with Lashley long term, she will not be with him long term, and now we're seeing that breakup. There is a recap of the entire Viking Profit feud. Yes, we're calling it a Viking Profit feud now because they are ultimately one team. Much as the same camaraderie that the New Day and the Usos have, I feel the new Usos could be a thing, or Uso Day. Uso Day is better. Apparently these are the only tag teams that Vince McMahon wants to push, because we haven't seen any other tag teams for quite a while now. I've been largely positive about these segments and it's been growing on me. The ridiculousness does sort of corrupt you slowly over time. Now we have ninjas, and this is where they ended up. Akira Tozawa interrupted the backstage segment and demanded a sequel. This would result in an 8-man tag match with the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits versus Akira Tozawa and 3 ninjas, none of which are the big ninja. I have to ask questions about that. If you want to win a match, maybe get your big guy involved. The big guy at the end does threaten after the match, which was a squash in favour of the Viking Profits, got to say. He comes into the ring. Akira Tozawa does a funny little squat to make the guy look bigger. Yes, I know his name, but ultimately I'm waiting for the WWE to tell me what to call him, so I'll be referring to him as Unnamed Big Ninja. Speaking of big, the Big Show makes an appearance. Yes, it is the Big Show, and it is indeed a big bad show tonight. Yeah. It's the Big Show. The Viking Street Show, as I'm referring to them all combined, beat up on the small ninjas once again, and the big ninja just sort of drops out and walks off under direction from Akira Tozawa. Will he be in the ring at any time soon? Answer on a postcard, because hell if I know. When we were told that Vince McMahon will be focusing less on fresh talent, more on veterans, Christian and Big Show aren't exactly the names I was expecting. But this is one way to pop a rating, so I can't imagine they're going to be too unhappy about it backstage. Seth Rollins comes down to the ring and runs over his usual talking points. He's interrupted by Rey Mysterio on the big screen, who throws some threats because Dominic Mysterio has made his way to Monday Night Raw. Apparently he's not backstage by the usual entrance, because otherwise Rollins probably would have spotted him. Turns out that is definitely the case, as Dominic Mysterio, a house of fire, comes in through the crowd and attacks Seth Rollins. Once again, someone coming in and emerging from a crowd to escape via a crowd. Obviously something they're going to need to be looking at. Eventually Theory and Murphy come down and run off Dominic Mysterio. Mysterio looks very good here. I do feel he's nearly ready, if not already ready, to get into the ring. And already ready is a hard phrase to say. Logically, we are heading towards Seth, Murphy and Theory versus Mysterio, Black and Mysterio, which I think would be a great opening match for Dominic Mysterio. There was no Aleister Black this week. He did take what I think is his first week off since he debuted on Raw. One last note on this, Seth Rollins has been cutting promos as sermons, and they've been fantastic with no crowd in attendance. Even the crowd here went quiet to show respect to the man delivering. I'm not sure how a normal crowd would respond. I'd imagine he'll get a lot of what? That would be a shame. Over the course of a number of segments, and due to a calamity of backstage errors, RTruth somehow ends up with the WWE Championship being defended in a tag team match between himself and Drew McIntyre on one side and Bobby Lashley and MVP on the other. How? I will never know. I'm guessing RTruth is now the GM of Raw. This will be important later on. Liv Morgan and Natalya take a beating via the Iconics so that the two Aussies can get their heat back. It's not a great moment for Liv Morgan or Natalya, but Natalya moves into a storyline a bit later on to cover for it. Meanwhile, Liv Morgan is protected by getting a visible pin on Billie Kay before taking the pin. Afterwards, the Iconics cut a promo on Sasha Banks and Bayley, who they say are there, and invite down to the ring. However, Sasha Banks and Bayley do not appear. The Iconics state that they know someone who knows someone who does know someone who knows someone who can create a Women's Tag Team Championship match next week on Raw. I'm guessing they know RTruth, who, as we know, is a GM of Raw. Charlotte and Ric Flair are shown backstage, having what is probably the most natural conversation there has ever been on WWE programming. This is of course done as a way not just to hype the appearance of Ric and Charlotte, but also to hype up the possibility that Charlotte might be interrupting a Asuka Nia Jax championship match later in the night. Turns out that's a red herring, but I feel a lot of WWE fans have been trained that when you see Charlotte Flair, expect to see her getting involved. Apollo Crews defends the United States Championship against Shelton Benjamin, who was recently on SmackDown and is now apparently on Raw. Both men apparently are people that MVP is trying to recruit, and all I'll say on that is that I think MVP has a type. The match is good, as you'd expect of two men this athletic, but it is far, far too short. Cruz retains via holding onto the ropes, but it's all fair game because Shelton Benjamin ultimately started it. I like that they're adding a bit more personality and a little edge for Apollo Crews at the moment because he is someone who does need it. He hasn't had much character development in his entire time in WWE. We get a full recap of the Nia Jax and Asuka feud leading into their championship match a bit later in the night. Asuka is interviewed backstage and does the Japanese and then English and serious thing that she's been doing a lot recently. It's become a bit of a go-to shtick. RTruth during that segment apparently lost the GM-ship of Raw because the Big Show is now the one making matches. Backstage, he talks to the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits about how they can end their Who's Better series. One way he suggests is a wrestling match. Wrestling? Not sure it's going to catch on. Big Show also does a dance. Let's move on. Lashley and MVP compete against RTruth and Drew McIntyre in a tag match with the WWE Championship on the line. Lashley and McIntyre continue to have great in-ring chemistry. I really enjoyed their actual matches so far. But ultimately this one comes down to Lashley outside the ring, MVP inside the ring taking the Claymore, Drew McIntyre tagging in RTruth who hits a splash and wins the match. Very good look for RTruth, very good look for the 24/7 Championship that may be something of an apology to the USA Network, who, as I've reported previously, have really wanted to get that 24/7 Championship back on TV for a number of weeks now. Sasha Banks and Bayley make their ring entrance to celebrate Bayley's birthday. Bayley apparently has a birthday cake shaved into the back of her head. Could have fooled me. Iconics interrupt, as you might expect. They get a bit angry, get a bit leery with Sasha Banks, and Bayley eventually accepts the championship match they posed earlier in the night, which I swear RTruth already made happen, but I'm guessing Big Show had to make it happen now. Maybe it all needed rebooking. Maybe this entire night needed rebooking. Who knows? But when you have 3 GMs in one night, There is a recap of Dominic Mysterio attacking Seth Rollins before Nia Jax makes her entrance for her championship match. These two women, Asuka and Nia Jax, have an intense level of chemistry. Now, Backlash, we had a double count out, and one of the things that have been reported is that apparently this was a late decision by Vince McMahon in order to prolong the feud instead of the previously planned Asuka clean win. This match really throws that into contention because here we have an Asuka clean win. I'm not sure how Jax and the referee argument are going to develop into a storyline, but I'm excited to see where we go. I did of course expect that we might see Charlotte Flair. We did not, which I think is a very good use of Charlotte Flair, creating that red herring and that uncertainty around the match finish. Our main event match is the unsanctioned match between Christian and Randy Orton, and in the end is given less than 5 minutes, so we know we're in for a classic. Naturally, with Christian not cleared to wrestle, he takes 0 bumps and is protected throughout, including by a little bit of nice camera work. Ric Flair comes down before the match starts, says that he has spoken to Edge, and this can't continue, this can't happen. He implores Christian to not take part in the match. And then I feel the storyline-wise Ric Flair is protecting Christian here. When the bell does ring, Ric Flair hits a low blow on Christian, taking him out of the match. Randy Orton then hits the punt. It misses by a mile, but there's a bit of clever editing to ensure that it's protected and covered. Obviously, he can't take even the slightest risk of being anywhere in Christian's vicinity with the punt, so I completely understand why they did this. Orton pins Christian, and then while Christian is being attended to by medics, Orton hangs around. He talks to Christian saying he didn't want to do it. He talks to the medics saying take good care of him. Orton's storyline right now and his character right now is absolutely brilliant. I'm loving everything he's doing. It's probably the most entertained I've ever been by Randy Orton, and I feel as a heel he's starting to overtake some of the real all-time greats. I felt that overall tonight Raw was a good show, but there were some serious drawbacks. There were some very short matches and a lot of them. I was glad to see some names back on the card, but they didn't get really much of any time to shine. Our main event level segments, that being Orton and Christian and Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, were given plenty of backstage segments to really boost them up. If you'd have cut a couple of those out or in any way pushed them together, you could possibly have had a bit longer in the actual matches. So I feel that might be the right way to go personally. The WWE also, to my knowledge, intentionally leaked the information that Christian would be at Raw and would be competing. A lot of people were reporting on it before the show. A lot of people. They wanted to get people talking about Raw. For the first non-Heyman show, you could tell the shorter matches, the constant backstage segments, and also the appearances of names like Christian and the Big Show, who haven't been seen in a while, with Christian appearing only in a interview segment recently. Christian obviously back in the ring, Big Show competing, hitting a few punches even though it wasn't an official match. It's a changing of the guard backwards. We'll see if this continues to be the way. There were a lot of storylines that were kept going, especially from Backlash. I do feel that Pritchard was working with a script that Heyman had already written. This isn't a bad thing by any means. Over the next few weeks and months, I'm sure we'll see things change in one direction or the other, but I think Christian and Big Show are people we might see more of. Christian not for a while because that punt looked nasty, but Big Show is now the chief booker of Raw, so I'm sure we'll see him soon. Please let me know what you thought of Monday Night Raw down in the comments. I've been Tom Colahue. Please like, share and subscribe to this video, and thank you very much for watching.